Good morning. My name's Laura Torchio, and I love the way she pronounced my name, Laura. That's how they say it in Italy, where my ancestors are from. So I'm Laura Torchio. I'm here representing the Project for Public Spaces. We're a planning and design nonprofit that helps people strengthen their communities through public space. And together, we believe we can build a world where every public space is community powered. So before we get into it, first of all, I want to say, don't turn off your phones. I would like you to turn on your phones. I would like you to turn on your phones because we're going to do a little exercise where we're going to need to access the internets. And while we're getting our phones out and getting ready, I want to get a sense from all of you in terms of, if we're thinking about places and spaces, what is the place you currently call home? So I'd like to see, by standing up, and if you would prefer just to raise your hand, that's quite all right too, but stand up if you are from New York City, and it was kind of easy to get here. All right. All right, stand up if you're from D.C. area. Stand up if you're from the East Coast in general. That would be me. All right. How about, are there any people from the South, Southern United States? Okay. How about Midwest? How about West Coast? Ooh. How about outside United States? All right. Great. Thank you. And welcome, everybody, for coming, those who traveled from near and from far. So we're going to get started with an online poll. And somebody's going to have to tell me how to work this thing. I think it's poll everywhere, right? I'm going to look at Alina.
So the slide was just up, but we're switching over to a different computer.
Okay.
They will text to 22333.
So you're going to text to 22333.
And you're going to text the word population HE901. Population N.
Population N.
No, it's population HE901.
Population HE901.
That's what you text. You will just text that
You
word.
texted to the number. The number was
22333.
22333. That's who you're texting. And then the word you text is population HE901.
901. One word. So you'll get a reply that says you're in.
All right. Raise your hand if you're in. And we'll give time for those who aren't in. So once you get in, there's going to be a question for you. And the question is, think about a place you love and name one public space that makes it special. So I'm going to reword that a little bit because I tripped over the question. So think about a place, a city, a town that you love. And then name one public space within that makes it special to you. And we should be able to see your answers up on the screen live. So my understanding is, this is my second time using poll everywhere. I've used Mentimeter before. Okay, so once you text that word population H blah, 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 whatever it was, then you can answer the question through your text. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
reply to what you got.
Okay. All right, so we're getting some names of places that I'm having a hard time seeing from here. Detroit Children's Zoo, Missouri Botanical Garden, New York City Central Park, Alexandria, the Pitt Playground, New York City Inwood Park, Embarcadero, Liberty State Park in Jersey City, Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, City Walk. So some of these are, oh, does this come off? Oh my gosh, freedom. Oh my gosh, look at this. So some of them are cities, like whole cities we're talking about. Some of them are like parks. Some of them are places where you can do stuff. New York City, Bryant Park, Rosie the Riveter National Park, Mill River General Store. This is great. This is really great. What is this? The Medina Fest in Fez. Okay. Melbourne, Governor's Island, Napa Valley, Paris. Oh, what does that say? Mazatlan, the Malcon and Beach. Okay. Where's that? Mexico. Okay. Meadowlark Gardens, Vienna, Inwood Hill Park, DeKalb Farmers Market. This is great. So you guys have been around. Hopefully you've enjoyed these places. What are some of the things that, before we get to the next question, what are some of the things that you did in these kinds of places? What are some of the things that made them enjoyable to you? Just shout out your answers. Somebody got married in one of them. Food, the good food, right? People watching. Conversations, great music. Public art. You watched your kids grow up. That's beautiful. Those are really great. Okay, so we have a sense of great places around the world. Good. Check. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Alina, help me out. How do they get to the next question? The next question is, I don't know how you're going to answer it, but start thinking about it. The next question is, to what extent is the space you named and enjoyed by all, to what extent is the space you named enjoyed by all people? Consider differences by race, gender, age, class, ability, and language. And there's going to be, it's a multiple choice question. And your answers can be extremely inclusive, somewhat inclusive, neutral, somewhat exclusive, or extremely exclusive. Okay, we're getting a lot that seem to be extremely inclusive. That's good. That's the goal, right? For those who are saying yes, these public spaces that they love are inclusive, what about them makes you answer that way? Anybody? Shout it out. Public access for transportation and different abilities. Somebody over here. No cost. Free and accessibility. Okay, what about some that were deemed somewhat exclusive? Can you talk about that a little bit? Transportation or lack of transportation? Don't anybody say parking. You can say parking, that's okay. Infrastructure for people with disabilities, like ADA accessible. Bathrooms, yeah. Fences to keep people out, yeah. Multilingual space, great. And poor maintenance, yeah. The condition is really interesting too. Okay, so we are going to launch into a little visual immersion. And as we're getting into this video, we're going to watch a video that Nina put together for us. Thank you, Nina. I want you to think about the words space and place, right? So space is generally a description of a land, a building, or a street. And a place, it becomes a place when you can associate an experience you had, or if it has some kind of meaning or memory there, right? And everyone experiences spaces differently. So just by a show of hands, how many of you like to do yoga on the beach? I do. How many of you can't stand all that sand in all your parts? Right? And on the other side of the coin, how many of you love New Year's Eve in Times Square? And how many of you hate it, would never want it, right? Talk about bathrooms, right? Okay, so let's cue up the video and enjoy.
Everyone has the right to live in a great place. More importantly, everyone has the right to contribute to making the place where they already live great. A safe and equitable space is one that centers the needs and desires of all residents, regardless of race, gender, ability, income, or sexual identity. And in the cases when design and redevelopment revolve around those typically centered in the public imagination, characteristically white, sometimes heterosexual, nearly always able-bodied people with wealth or access to other forms of capital, the work must be recalibrated. What our cities can become and who is allowed to belong in them are fundamentally and inextricably interlinked. Therefore, we must act on issues related to both belonging and becoming together, or face deepening spatial and social inequities and inequalities. There is nothing economically or socially inevitable about either decay of old cities or the fresh minted decadence. On the contrary, no aspect of our economy and society has been more purposefully manipulated to achieve precisely what we are getting.
Thank you, Nina. That was a great video. Okay, so of the images that you saw, what images resonated most for you? We're going to have a chat now. What images resonated most for you and why? Like, what did you see and feel about some of the images? Do we have another? Oh, we do have another. Good. Okay, there's a couple hands up.
Hey, Laura. Well, all the images put people first. They were great spaces, but it was the people that were forward.
Woo-hoo. There was a hand up in the back. No? Change your mind?
I just didn't realize I was going to have to use a mic.
You don't have to use a mic. I'll repeat what you say.
Well, the open spaces, that there were parks, there were families, there was a place that it was accessible to everyone. So my thing first was accessibility and that it was free, and that's one of the things that attracted me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think joy. I think everybody in the pictures was happy. So.
You know what? When I saw the little girl with the paint on her face jumping on the rope with the, jump rope with the smile, it brought me back to my own kid who is, she's not that age anymore, so I don't get that big smile on her face ever anymore. She's 18, so she's like, front row.
All of them were celebrating community and coming together, which was kind of surprising because some of my favorite places are places where I could be alone.
That's right. Everybody experiences space differently, and we do need that alone time and nature and quiet as well. In fact, on the way here, I had the sound of rain. Even though it's raining outside, I had the rain, the rain sound in my head just because I wanted calming. I wanted calm rain in my earphones. Anybody else? What did you see, feel? What resonated with you? Okay. I'm going to say that people first, open, joy, community coming together, and being alone is kind of common themes. One more?
I think all the pictures really showed a diversity of people enjoying the spaces. And so as we talked about across race and ethnicity, and you could guess by the nature of the places, income, and other population characteristics that we discussed.
Yeah, great. So diversity in space. So how do places... this is getting a little more philosophical. How do places support equitable health and well-being, do you think? How can places be more open to all and support health in all ways? Physical health, mental health, access to health care, access to healthy food.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was told to say who I am. My name is Doug Judy. I run the Build Healthy Places Network out in California, and Dolores Park that showed up on there is down the street from my old house, and it was designed to encourage people to use it in different ways. So there's a playground, there's areas to run the dog around, there are playing fields for organized sports, but that's by intent, I guess. So I think one thing is to design it for different people with different abilities and different interests.
Another, Becky.
Hi, Hanko Yu from the California Endowments. I think it creates a sense of belonging and a sense that the community owns the space and are really part of the design, upkeep, and just vibrancy of the whole community.
Great. So we have some when they're intentionally designed for all, others where they feel like, where they create a space that people feel like they belong and they're maintained and kept well.
Buenos dias. My name is Gavin Arredondo from Richmond, California. I think similar for the residents to design it, and I know that they put, like the group that will be talking today, Pogo Park, they actually built the space. So actually paying residents to build the space, engage in it, and basically host it, multiple hours throughout the day. So.
Right, and when the community is involved in making that space, they become the stewards of that space, don't they? Yeah. Okay, let's move on to another question. So we want to talk about inclusivity and belonging. So what makes a place inclusive? And what does it take to create and keep public spaces where all people feel like they belong? Nina?
Is not having signs that dictate that certain things are not allowed.
Oh, like no walking on the grass?
Like no walking on the grass, or no playing, or no skateboards, or things that exclude certain people just with signage alone.
Yeah. So signs, yeah. What else have we come across that's been exclusionary? Or what are some things that we've seen or been intentional about that are more inclusive?
I think
Zoning.
Deeds on the property. You know, a lot of times property is donated to cities
Yeah.
with specific exclusionary requirements.
So what is your name? Shirley. Shirley's getting at something that I think is something we want to think about in this space of placemaking and placekeeping, and that is I like to think of it as like a sandwich. You know, the bottom bun is your built environment. This is the spaces and the places, right? And the top bun are the things that regulate those spaces, like the zoning laws and things like that. And inside is the programming, the maintenance, and all of that stuff, the uses that happen in there. And so when we're thinking about belonging and places and spaces and keeping and stewardship, we want to think about all of those things, not just the built environment, but the policies that are in place that allow us or don't allow us to do certain things there. Anyone else on
I'm thinking activity, replication, and some history. A good example is the Tacoma Park Farmers Market has been in existence, for probably 50 years. It's every Sunday. It's different vendors, different people, and it's the activity and the community that really makes it a very, very inclusive space, even to newcomers.
Yeah, and I bet it's so much more than just shopping for fruits and vegetables, right? There was another person up here.
Yeah, I was still heavily reflecting on the question about health equity because I think it's an area that we sort of miss. And as I think about equity as their fullest health, regardless of their ability, I think that an open space allows people to address their health needs in the way that they need to. If it's physical, I can walk. If it's emotional, I can connect. So really thinking of health really broadly as to a person's well-being and having the space in that setting that allows them to act on what they need to address what they believe is good health.
I think that's a really important topic to bring up and to think deeply about today, is how people can live their best lives wherever they are right now.
Yeah. And on the inclusive piece, the thought came to me is that it's where it's located has some significance. Because there are a lot of public spaces, but not all those spaces are welcoming.
That's right.
And not all of them are as open as we've been talking about. They're very limited.
Yeah.
So I think the location of the space is important too. From whether it be in an urban setting to a suburban setting, and what people believe they can and can't do in those spaces.
So location is important. Okay, we're going to do a couple more because I think our time is kind of running out. Somebody keeping an eye on the time. Sharon.
Sharon Rorty, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. When I think about sense of belonging and equity in space, one of the factors is adaptability and flexibility. And that's both a mindset and it's a design issue, and it's also an approach in terms of controls. So a space may be designed for one thing, but allowing it to be used for many other things brings in that sense of belonging and helps bring that equity to that space.
Yeah, like streets, right, Sharon? Streets.
Yeah. I also think, Hunter, you from the endowment, I also think about how many spaces do we know where there isn't that sense of multi-generational shared space, so that there's a sense of history, belonging, and the push-out problem from gentrification is huge.
Yeah. Okay, one more? Oh, two more. Okay.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. I'm Joe from Pogo Park in Richmond, California. And I was going to save this for the presentation, but, I'm like, these are all our special things. But one of the things that, regards to health equity and thinking about how we program spaces is to make sure that we're actually responding to what the community needs. So, for example, at Elm Play Lot, the first park we redeveloped, we're a certified provider of school lunches. And that didn't come from meeting with the school district and having big conversations. That came from talking to the parents who were at the park because most of our staff at our park are from the neighborhood and finding out what the needs were there. And so trying to meet those needs, I think that really helps make the space inclusive, because now you're actually responding to the community because you're working with the community.
Exactly. I was just I did a workshop in a town, and they had done some redevelopment downtown, and one of the things that went up was a mixed use apartment building, and they had a wall that they wanted to put a mural on, and they were asking me, what do you think about curating artists and getting a mural, and what do you think we should do here? I said, why don't you ask the residents what they'd like? And she was like, oh, okay. So, yeah. And there was one more over here.
Milton Little from Atlanta.
Hi, Milton.
While I live in Atlanta, where there are lots of parks, I grew up in New York City, and so it sort of follows up a point earlier about public will to inconvenience others. As a child, I took for granted that the streets would close and the hydrants would open and I'd be able to play in the street. Only as an adult did I realize how inconvenient that was for others. And so sometimes so it's the idea that you're willing to do that, to create spaces where access to public spaces, parks and others, is not available.
Right.
But how do you create a replication of that for those who just don't have the access?
Right. And to the point of flexibility, all spaces can't be all things at all times, or maybe they can, but that's very rigid. But if we have flexibility built in, maybe sometimes we can have some water play in our street, and other times it's closed off for moving traffic and people and goods. And parking. So I want to thank you for getting this conversation started. I hope you're all primed. If you weren't primed already, I hope you're more primed for the conversation to move forward. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here with you today. And now I'm going to hand it off to Carol, who's going to talk about how placemakers and placekeepers are thinking about inclusion.